We're very pleased to have the opportunity today to speak to Dr. Slawomir Debski, who is the director of the Polish-Russian Center for Dialogue and Understanding in Warsaw, an institute that's existed for several years, quite new but very active. And so the first question I would like to pose to you is, what is the purpose of your institute?
Thank you very much for inviting me here and providing me an opportunity to share with your guests my thoughts on Polish-Russian relations and particularly the process of reconciliation. The Center for Polish-Russian Dialogue and Understanding was established by the Act of Parliament 2011 to provide the platform for better communication between societies, to enhance dialogue on painful historical problems that still overshadow our relations, and to facilitate the process of reconciliation. As you probably know from German experience, there is no chance for effective reconciliation without the institutions. So we follow German example. We look very carefully how this institution worked in the Franco-German process of reconciliation, how excellent operate institutions between Poland and Germany, and how well they supported the process of reconciliation between two states. So that was for us first the point of reference, how we should think about the process of reconciliation between Poland and Russia. It was a source of inspiration for people involved in the process on the Polish side, as well as a source of very good example of, very effective instruments.
And what would you say was the first step in this process of reconciliation between Poland and Russia? I mean, reconciliation's a slow process, it's a long process, but it requires usually what's called a reconciliation event, a decisive step taken to suggest that there has to be a break in old relations and the creation of something new. What would you suggest was that step in Polish-Russian reconciliation?
Well, I fully agree that there is no reconciliation process without the political will, without the political umbrella. And there were a sequence of such milestones in this process in Polish-Russian case. In 2008, the Group for Difficult Matters was re-established under the joint chair of Adam Daniel Rotfeld, the former Polish foreign minister, and Anatoly Torkunow, the head of Russian Institute of International Studies University, closely associated with Russian Foreign Ministry. They together wrote a recommendation for both governments in June 2009, in which they stated that in order to promote the idea of dialogue and reconciliation, we need to establish institutions which would work permanently, on permanent basis, day to day, and will support the whole process. In 1st of September 2009, there was the meeting in Sopot and Westerplatte on the occasion of 7th anniversary of outbreak of World War II, in which Prime Minister Donald Tusk and that time Prime Minister Vladimir Putin participated. And during this meeting, they agreed with these recommendations of the chairman. Next meeting took place in April 2007, 7th of April 2010, and in that time they agreed that Ministry of Culture would be responsible for making this idea operational. Under the auspices of Ministry of Cultures of both sides, two centers were established, one in Warsaw, one in Moscow, having the same budget, the same amount of budget, €1 million each, and the same agenda of goals. Our center was established March 2011. Russian Foundation for Russian-Polish Dialogue and Reconciliation was established by the act of Russian President October 2011. So we are quite new institutions. Nevertheless, the political will was implemented and definitely was crucial for the whole process.
As you know from German-Polish reconciliation, you've also referred to Franco-German reconciliation, civil society actors are crucial players, and often they can be the forces that initiate new relations. Could you talk about how your institute, which is a government-granted organization, how it engages civil society actors in its work?
Yes, indeed, we are a state entity established by the Act of Parliament, as I said. One of our goals, according to our Act of Parliament, is to support all those who are willing to do something in order to enhance the communication between Polish and Russian societies. So among those who can apply for our support are non-governmental organizations, associations, students organizations. All these kind of institutions may apply for grants given by the center to organize either conferences, meetings, roundtables, or organize youth exchange, which is quite important in our thinking. Because we perceived youth exchange as the most effective investigation into future better relations between Poles and the Russians.
And if I'm not mistaken, your institute was also instrumental in facilitating the joint statement that was made by the Polish and Russian religious leaders. That is, again, an important sign of an incipient reconciliation at the societal level. Could you talk a little bit about how you were involved in that?
Yes, we provide some assistance into this process. Once all joint address of the Polish Episcopate and Russian Orthodox Church was agreed, the problem appeared how to organize the ceremony of signing it. We have to bear in mind that the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, Patriarch Cyril I, was to come to Poland on invitation of the Polish Autocephalic Orthodox Church, which was not involved in the process of drafting joint statement, joint address to the Polish and Russian nations, which was to be signed. On the other side, Moscow Patriarchate was very reluctant to the idea of signing these documents on the ground of Polish Catholic Church. However, document was agreed, it was the problem appeared how to implement, let's say, the whole idea of addressing joint address to the public. And we suggested the solution of the problem, which ultimately was accepted by both sides. And we offered the venues of Warsaw Castle as a neutral ground for both sides. And as I said, both sides accepted this solution, accepted this offer, and we organized all this protocolial affair, which was quite complicated, I must say, because it was not a state protocol. It was a kind of the compromise of the Orthodox Church protocol and Polish Episcopate protocol, and of course there was a mixture of protocols, of different protocols, because also Polish Orthodox Apostolic Church has to be invited for this ceremony. Well, we succeeded. We succeeded, and I received congratulations from both sides. So I was very happy that we proved to be useful.
We agree that civil society actors are essential to the process of reconciliation, and it's clear that Poland is a very open society in which civil society organizations can flourish, but there's a serious question about the life of non-governmental organizations in Russia and how much freedom they possess today. Is that an obstacle to trying to, because there is this asymmetry, is there an obstacle in trying to pursue reconciliation when one society is more open than the other is?
Absolutely, that's obstacle, but it's not the only one. We have to bear in mind that between Poland and Russia there are a long list of differences, structural, systemic, starting from different constitutional order, ending on different administrative cultures. There is a division of labor between Polish center and the Russian one. We are responsible for activities in Poland. They are responsible for activities in Russia. Of course, we try to engage representatives of civil societies, NGOs from both sides in different ways. Either we invite into the cooperation individual representatives of such institutions, organizations. We invite them for conferences, for joint research programs. We do not close our eyes on that what's going on in Russia in terms of freedom of operation of NGOs. I believe that in future Russian society would come into the terms with their own problems, because we do not have either instrument nor the will to interfere with the state of affairs in Russia in this regard. We'd like to encourage our partners to the thinking that we need allies, as many as only possible. We need allies in the society, we need allies in, well, let's say, so-called opinion leaders, among the opinion leaders. So there is no other way how to possess these allies from the society as through working closely and effectively with representatives of civil society. That's our Polish approach. The only thing we can do is to encourage our partners to accept and to understand this approach as effective instrument of pushing, moving our joint agenda forward.
And your institute, as you've described it, clearly was spawned by the Committee on Difficult Matters. And you deal with those difficult matters in your programming, for example, in your joint research projects. Could you identify for us what you consider the key difficult matters between Russia and Poland?
Well,
historical issues, obviously.
Still, the questions concerning generally World War II are the most difficult problems we have to deal with. The source of the problem is that there are a mixture of opinions in Russia concerning Stalin and Stalinism epoch and its role in Russian history. For Poles, we have no hesitation to call dictator Stalin as a criminal, as an individual who committed atrocities of unprecedented scale. And for us it is very difficult to accept the fact that there are cycles in Russian society who still perceived Stalin as a national hero, as a good example to follow, and as a source of national pride. This kind of approach, of course, has its consequences in our dialogues on historical matters.
The key difficult matters, historical issues between Poland and Russia, and you refer to World War II as a whole complex of issues, and then specifically different approaches and different interpretations and understandings of the Stalin era between Poland and some Russians. And as I understand it, the Katyn massacre is still a sensitive, emotional issue for important segments of Polish society. Would you agree with that? Is that still an issue that needs much more dialogue?
Yes, it is still important issue, and it will be important issue as long as in Polish-Russian relations the complex of Katyn affair is unfinished business. What I mean, however, there is no problem of recognition who is responsible for this crime, because all Russian authorities confirm Soviet Stalin's responsibility. But still some important documents concerning the process of perpetration of this crime are still not in our hands, as I say, and as I can put it. And we still are waiting for more open access to Russian archives in this particular case. For example, so-called the list of those who were executed on today's territory of Belarus is unknown. There is 3,800 individuals on this list, or should be on this list, and we still are looking for in Russian and Belarusian archives to find the list of these individuals. As long as there are families in Poland who don't know where their relatives lay their remains due to after the executions, we still have to look for documentation concerning them, and it is, as I said, unfinished business. There is also the problems concerning the position of Russian judiciary system, generally speaking. In Strasbourg Tribunal for Human Rights, there is a case between relatives of those who were murdered in Katyn and Russian state. The relatives sued Russian state to this court for unwillingness, on the ground of unwillingness to get them access to these archives, and fair investigation, lack of fair investigation of this crime. And Russian prosecutors representing us, we believe, Russian state, are very reluctant to even use the term Katyn massacre, Katyn crime. Instead, they use the term Katyn incidents, which, of course, is very badly received among the Polish society, because actually it is the continuation of the Katyn lie, which followed the crime itself. It means the falsification of the truth, who was responsible for this crime, and where we should search the people who actually took part in realization of Stalin's decision of execution of Polish POWs.
You're also an expert on German-Russian relations and on German-Polish relations. So I wonder if you could specify for us what you think the implications are from Russian-Polish reconciliation for German-Polish relations and for German-Russian relations. I mean, we're now talking about a triangle of relations. How do you see that operating? I mean, Germany and Poland have had differences over Russia in the past. Does the Polish-Russian reconciliation open up an easier relationship between Germany and Poland over Russia? How do you see this new dynamic operating?
One thing we have to state very clearly: we are at the beginning of the process. Any kind of reconciliation, any other examples show us that it is a very difficult and very long, complicated process with a lot of ups and downs. It is very difficult to point out at tangible achievements of this dialogue and our efforts in Polish and in Russian societies. So not mention, more wider picture. Having said that, I would say that there is an interconnection between Polish efforts to reconcile or to improve the communication. Let me put it in this way and use this term. Reconciliation, it is a fixed international relations term. It's being described as an instrument of foreign policy also. And you are one of those who follow this particular attempts very carefully. So I appreciate your studies and research you did in this on this field. Polish-Russian efforts to improve communication between each other have had an impact on Polish-German relations and even more widely Polish foreign policy as such. It makes the room for maneuver of Polish foreign policy more wider. It provides more options in Polish foreign policy. It also helps to tackle with a stereotype, quite widespread in international affairs, that Polish-Russian relations are doomed to be antagonistic all the time. If such perspective exists, and as long as this perspective exists, it was very difficult to build a common Polish-German position towards Russia, towards other Eastern European partners of European Union. We have to also bear in mind that there is a systemic difference between Polish-German dialogue and Polish-German reconciliation process, and approximation between Polish and Russian Federation, Poland and Russian Federation. We are, Poles and the Germans, under a common umbrella of institutions. I mean, NATO, European Union, which provide a common strategic goal for both states. There is no such umbrella embracing Poland and Russia. We have to be, therefore, more creative, and we have to provide other intellectual ground for the process. Therefore, it's much more difficult and much more challenging.
Thank you very much, Dr. Debski, for being with us today.
Thank you very much.